You didn't stay quiet because you're a coward. You stayed quiet because you love your partner. You knew that subject caused them pain. You knew that going too deep would hurt, so you didn't. And to protect them, you sacrificed yourself. But your needs didn't go away when you stopped mentioning them. The longer they went unmet, the more they turned into frustration, and frustration into resentment. So here you are years later, and from the outside, your relationship looks good. And yet you still can't quite shake that quiet unhappiness, even though there's nothing major you can really point to as to the cause. And that noble sacrifice that you made never helped your partner carry the pain they're pretending isn't there. Nobody got protected. But this is fixable. There are 3 things that turned your good intentions into quiet resentment, and I did all of them. So when I tell you that the way out is uncomfortable, I know exactly what I'm asking of you. And I'm still here telling you it's worth it. Because there's a version of this where your needs get met regularly and you don't even have to ask. So here's the first one. You didn't keep the peace, you kept the resentment. Think about the last time that you decided something wasn't worth bringing up. And you were probably right. It was probably late. They had a long day. The version of that conversation that you had in your mind probably wasn't going to go anywhere good. And so you thought it better to just let it go. And the evening was probably better for it. And that part is very true. The calm was real. You weren't fooling yourself. But there's a big difference between letting something go and putting something down. Even though from the outside, they can look identical. But here's the test. Does it come back? Not the argument, the feeling. If it shows up 3 weeks later in your tone about something completely unrelated, you didn't let it go. You just stored it. And it kept every bit of the charge that it had the night that you stored it. Here's something small for this week. Just count. Every time you catch yourself thinking, this isn't worth it, count it. Don't act on it. Don't bring it up. Just count the number. Most people are shocked at how many times they actually do this over the course of a week. I'm Dan. I'm 39 years old, and for over 21 years, my wife Esme and I have been learning that great relationships aren't built through perfection. They're built through repair, intention, and the choice to keep showing up. This is where I reflect on the mistakes that we've made, the lessons that we've learned, and the life we're still building together. Join us as we continue our lifelong journey of practicing presence. Now, there's a study that I keep coming back to. Researchers followed 69 couples through cancer treatment, checking in daily for 3 weeks. Both people reporting completely separately. And on the days that one of them had held something back to protect the other's feelings, both of them had reported feeling less close to their partner. Not a year later, literally the same day. The one that's protecting and the one that's being protected both felt it. That's about the purest motive a person can have. And it still cost them the same day. As you all know, there was a subject in my marriage that I steered around for years. It was very tender for Esme, and I told myself that protecting her from it was the loving thing to do. But here's the part that I've never talked about on the channel. The pressure didn't hold. So every so often I would finally boil it all over and it blew up in my face every single time. Because what was coming out was not my needs. It was everything being driven by resentment. And so when it blew up, it taught me that those conversations were something that I needed to continue to avoid. So the second one is the one that a lot of people don't really want to talk about, and that's that our partners already know. You know, it's 10 at night and you finally say it out loud, and what comes out isn't, I've been missing you, it's you never, because you're not opening a topic. You're presenting a bill for 4 years of resentment and pain that you didn't really give over to them freely. And so they don't hear the new information. They already knew. They've been carrying around the knowledge that they aren't meeting your needs for as long as you've been carrying the needs. So your big honest moment just confirms their worst fears, that they're not meeting them. And now, to be fair, you were just being honest. And everyone says that you should communicate and be honest and open and upfront. And you finally did that. And that's great. And it's real. And that's why it's so hard to see this one from the inside. But whatever was making it hard for them, and it can be literally anything, whether it's exhaustion or their own resentment or something maybe they've never told you about, your attempt just made it heavier. You added weight to the exact thing that is standing in the way of getting your needs met. And so 20 minutes later, you're sitting in the kitchen again, alone, holding proof that this is why you never bring anything up. And both roads led there. Not saying it grew into resentment, and saying it poorly grew the resentment. There was never a time for the tank to get depleted. So before you raise something, you need to ask yourself whether or not they already know it or not. If they do, you're not informing them, you're confirming. And only one of those is helpful. Which brings us to the third point. Saying things out loud is not the skill. How you say it is. Everybody tells us to speak up, but nobody tells us that speaking up poorly is part of how we got here in the first place. You're not starting from zero on this. That conversation that you kept postponing was never canceled, it was just rescheduled. And it collected interest in two directions the whole time. The topic got harder because now it has years of resentment welded into it, and your ability to handle it never really was able to grow because you haven't been taking the time to have these small conversations on the day-to-day. So the day it finally lands in your lap, it's now like a level 9 conversation, but you're only capable of having a level 1. So you're not failing that conversation because you're a bad partner. You're failing it because you're just not capable of having that deep of a conversation yet. So the answer isn't to be braver, and it certainly isn't to say things more calmly either, which is something that we often reach for. The answer is actually counterintuitive, and it took me the better part of 20 years to figure it out. You have to set your own needs down first, and then you go in to find out what's actually happening for them, in their mind, in their heart. Not because your need doesn't matter, but because theirs is what's actually standing in the way from yours getting met. And to prove this point, look at what all three of those things that I've just talked about have in common, because I couldn't understand it while I was living inside of it. Every one of them has you in the middle. The need you didn't say, the need you finally said but said badly, the need you couldn't find the words for when it mattered. 3 different failures, all 3 of them, all about getting your own needs across. Because love was never the thing that was missing here. Love is why you did all of it. You just aimed it in the wrong problem. So pick the smallest thing that you've been avoiding and talk about the avoidance itself, not the topic. You're not trying to solve anything in this conversation. You're trying to name out loud that you've both been walking around something. That's a level 1 conversation, and that's what you're capable of having right now until you get some practice in. The shape can be something like, hey, this is a topic that we've always kind of skirted around. This is why I skirt around it, what I'm afraid of. I'm curious as to why you skirt around it. But there are a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind before walking into this conversation. The first thing is you have to set the resentment down before you walk in. And I don't mean stop feeling it, because I certainly didn't. Feel it, but you have to refuse to let it drive the conversation. Next, go in to understand where they are actually at, not to get the outcome that you were trying to get. And I mean this literally. If your curiosity is just the means to get your needs met, it's not curiosity, and they're going to feel that. Lastly, you need to stay out of the judgment zone for the entire conversation. And this is a really hard one because you need to do it for the whole conversation, not just the opening part of it. Your resentment has spent years building a verdict, and it will keep offering it to you sentence by sentence the whole time you're sitting there. And the moment this becomes about your needs getting met, you've lost the conversation. The first 2 are decisions that you make at the door. The third one, though, is something that you have to keep practicing while you're in the middle of the conversation. But you'll know by the following morning whether or not you did it well, because you'll be able to answer a couple of questions. First is, did your need come up anywhere during that conversation? And the other one is, did you walk out without asking for your needs to be met? But I want you to remember too that one attempt isn't a test. Your partner has years of evidence that this conversation ends with them being the problem. And this first time that it doesn't, they're allowed to be suspicious of it. You're not running an experiment, you're trying to establish a pattern. So go have the conversation this week. You have to remember that helping your partner carry their heaviest burdens is not a defect of a relationship. It is the whole point of a relationship. And the beautiful truth is that once they aren't carrying that weight alone anymore, meeting your needs and helping you carry your burdens stops being one more impossible feeling task that they fail at. It becomes easy because they always knew what you needed. They just needed the room to give it to you. If this was worth your time, subscribing genuinely helps. And if you want to know what happens when that conversation actually goes well, you should watch What Your Marriage is Missing Isn't What You Named. That one picks up pretty much right where this one leaves off. I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.